I had just wrapped up my quarterly presentation, a meticulously crafted, data-packed analysis that highlighted our achievement of surpassing the $50 million revenue mark. Just as I was about to exhale a sigh of relief, the new CEO, Damon Reeves, stood up, adjusted his cufflinks, and cleared his throat. "Before we finish up," he said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I have one last announcement regarding our leadership restructuring." My heart skipped. I froze, my hand still suspended above the trackpad as the last slide, titled Q2 Revenue Surge, Celebrating a Record-Breaking Quarter, flickered behind me. Damon made his way slowly to the front, while the entire executive team fell into an uneasy silence. Some looked confused. A few, those who'd been whispering among themselves recently, avoided my gaze. "Effective immediately," Damon continued, "Olivia will be stepping down as Chief Operating Officer. Her contributions have been invaluable, and we are deeply appreciative." He paused. "However, as we shift to a phase focused on rapid scalability, we require more streamlined operations and quicker decision-making. Olivia's strength lies in strategic discipline, but we need to be more nimble." An uncomfortable quiet settled over the room. It wasn't the stunned silence of shock, but the heavy silence of something else. Shame, perhaps. "Funny," Damon added casually. "I believe your exact words last week were, 'We should hire more carefully and invest in development before scaling too quickly.'" He paused, letting the words sink in. "That kind of caution has its place, but not now. Thank you for your service." He turned to the rest of the team as if that neatly wrapped up the discussion. I kept my gaze fixed on him, this man who had been with the company for less than 3 months, and smiled faintly. "I appreciate the transparency," I replied, my tone even. No theatrics, no tears, no protest, just silence. Then, without another word, I stepped aside as Damon took control of the projector and launched into a slide titled, Phase 2, Structural Optimization. I left the room with the casual air of someone heading out for lunch. They had no idea. They didn't know what I had already set in motion. 2 months prior, when Damon had been appointed by the board, I sensed the shift. He came from a background of fast-paced venture capital firms, where decisions were driven by spreadsheets and egos, not by people. From the moment he arrived, he didn't see me as a partner, but as an obstacle to be bulldozed. I had founded the company's original product line 6 years ago. I built the team. I wrote the operations manual. And when our original CEO had stepped down due to health issues, I was the one who kept everything afloat. I never sought praise, only loyalty. What I received instead were subtle shifts. Meetings I was no longer invited to, strategies changed without consultation, and the growing realization that Damon was weaving a narrative where I didn't fit. Then, one afternoon, I overheard his assistant arranging a lunch with our largest vendor. My vendor, the one I had personally worked with for 5 years, negotiating contracts and maintaining relationships. "The plan," he told the vendor's rep, "is to phase Olivia out quietly. It'll make everything smoother." They wanted to erase me. But I had already taken steps. I had noticed the signs, and I knew something they didn't. Chronocore Systems, our largest vendor, had been facing financial difficulties. I had quietly reviewed their quarterly filings and knew they were in search of a buyout. The timing was perfect. So, I reached out to an old friend from grad school, now a private equity partner in Boston. We made an offer through a holding company I had secretly set up the year before. It was a smooth acquisition, discreet, legal, and clean. By the time Damon reached out to Chronocore's CEO to push me out of negotiations, he was politely but firmly told that any future communication would go through the new leadership of the holding company. Damon never connected the dots. When Damon announced my termination in front of the team, flashing a grin as if he'd finally cleared the last hurdle on his path to Phase 2, I didn't react. While he thought he was wielding the axe, I was quietly securing the ground beneath him. In my office, I packed up my belongings slowly. A family photo, the brass fountain pen my team had given me last Christmas, and a leather-bound copy of the Lean Startup, still filled with my handwritten notes. I arranged everything neatly into a box and turned to look out the glass wall. Damon was laughing with the CFO, and I couldn't help but smile, a soft, knowing smile. Tomorrow the emails would begin, contracts would be adjusted, and in 3 days, that cocky confidence would give way to panic. The company's lifeline, the one vendor they couldn't afford to lose, was now mine, and I was done staying silent. Later that Friday morning, I received a cold but polite email from HR. Subject: Transition Plan. Olivia, please complete the attached checklist by 5 p.m. today. We will arrange your severance and benefits transfer accordingly. Additionally, Damon has asked if you would be willing to draft a knowledge transfer document for your replacement. Best regards, Camille. People Operations. I couldn't help but laugh. The man fires me in front of the entire team and then asks for a favor as if we're exchanging pleasantries. Still, I kept it professional in my response. Camille. I'll ensure all deliverables are documented. Best. Olivia. It wasn't just about professionalism. It was strategic. Every file I handed over would be thorough, precise, but just incomplete enough to ensure they'd need a partner they no longer controlled. And that partner, Chronocore Systems, still hadn't figured it out. At 10:17 a.m., my attorney, Michelle, called. They're starting to catch on, she said. A junior procurement manager at your old company reached out to Chronocore, asking why they haven't signed off on the new delivery schedule. And we responded formally, citing the acquisition, and mentioned that the new leadership team will handle all future discussions, I replied. They'll escalate by Monday, Michelle predicted. Especially when they realize how crucial Chronocore is to their Phase 2 plans. They've got a dependency they didn't even think to vet, she added, almost laughing. Congratulations, you own their supply chain. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the stack of framed awards still left unpacked. Most of them were for operational excellence, cost savings, and strategic procurement. Achievements I'd earned under my watch. They had been proud of me. Until I became inconvenient. That evening, I had dinner with Clara, one of the few people left at the company I still trusted. She slid into the booth at our usual wine bar, her eyes wide with excitement. Everyone's talking about it, she said. Damon was cocky all afternoon, but by 3 p.m., his mood completely shifted. Something spooked him. I stirred my drink, not looking up. Was it about Chronocore? She nodded. They were supposed to finalize next quarter's contract this week, but the call got postponed. Legal mentioned something about a change in ownership, and now Damon's demanding answers. I raised an eyebrow. So, he's finally paying attention. Clara leaned in. He doesn't know yet, does he? I smiled slowly. Not yet. What are you going to do? I grinned, a calm, deliberate smile. Nothing. I already did it. The next day, Saturday, I received a meeting request. Not from Damon, but from their procurement lead, Trevor. Hi, Olivia. I know things ended a bit awkwardly, but I was hoping to have a quick conversation about the Chronocore contract. There seems to be some confusion internally, and you're the only one who handled those negotiations. Would you be available for a quick call? Trevor. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but simply because it wasn't my responsibility anymore. I didn't respond to Trevor's request. Instead, Michelle sent a formal letter on behalf of the holding company, Verity Partners LLC, informing Techline, the parent company, that all future negotiations regarding Chronocore services would be handled by Verity's new client relations lead, me. Sunday evening, just after 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a missed call. Unknown number. Damon Reeves. One voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Michelle had advised me not to. Let your silence speak volumes, she had said, and I trusted her judgment. Monday morning hit like a thunderstorm at Techline HQ. I woke up early, brewed my coffee, and logged into the vendor portal with the temporary access I still had. I checked the internal dashboards in red, seeing the unconfirmed fourth-quarter supplier contracts. If these stayed unresolved, 3 major product lines would be at risk. At 8:02 a.m., Clara texted me. Damon barged into the 8 a.m. All hands. No one knew what was going on. He looks like he hasn't slept. By 10:30 a.m., LinkedIn was buzzing with activity. A press release had been sent out. Chronocore Systems announces new ownership under Verity Partners LLC. The acquisition signals a new phase in operational leadership and client engagement. Our mission remains unchanged: to deliver top-tier enterprise solutions to our valued clients. It didn't mention my name, but anyone who knew me could connect the dots. At 11:12 a.m., I got a one-line email from Damon. "We need to talk urgently." I forwarded it to Michelle. She called 10 minutes later, laughing. "He's freaking out," she said. "He finally realized who owns the kingdom he thought he ruled. And I haven't even played my best hand yet." Chronocore wasn't just a software vendor. They were handling the data architecture for Techline's flagship AI-powered operations hub, a project Damon had bet his entire reputation as CEO on. Without Chronocore's custom data libraries, that project would crash before it even launched. As I stood in the hallway outside my apartment, I heard footsteps echoing past my door. I glanced over at my office belongings, still packed in boxes by the entryway. I hadn't decided whether to unpack them or donate them. It didn't matter anymore. On paper, I no longer worked at Techline. In reality, they worked for me. By Tuesday morning, the storm had fully hit Techline. I didn't need to have internal access to see the fallout. All I had to do was watch LinkedIn. A project manager updated her status to "open to work." 2 engineers from the AI division shared the Chronocore acquisition announcement with vague captions like "Big industry moves ahead" and "One door closes, another opens." But the real chaos began with a calendar invite from Damon's assistant. Subject line: Emergency Leadership Meeting, 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance. Clara texted me at 8:44 a.m. "He's sweating, literally." We all saw him walk in. Looks like someone handed him a resignation letter written in blood. I smiled to myself over my coffee. This wasn't about revenge. I wasn't interested in seeing Damon crumble for the sake of it, but I did want the board to understand the kind of decision they made when they handed the keys to a man who couldn't see past his own ego. That morning, Michelle and I finalized the formal licensing proposal for Techline. It wasn't cruel, just costly. Chronocore had previously offered services under a volume discount model that I had personally negotiated to optimize for growth. That model, gone. What Techline would now be offered was a pay-as-you-go arrangement, billed monthly with an added premium for data hosting, integration support, and most notably, access to the proprietary AI learning modules that powered their new ops hub. Michelle couldn't help but read through the terms again, savoring the moment. Standard enterprise rates, with a 22% premium for custom dependencies, plus exclusivity clauses. Oh, and of course, public recognition of Chronocore's new ownership. "Let's send it before lunch," I said. "That'll give them just enough time to lose their appetite." Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Clara. "Olivia, the engineers figured it out. You bought Chronocore? It's spreading through Slack. Damon is furious. He pulled the entire DevOps team into a closed-door meeting." A few minutes later. "P.S. 2 directors just asked me if you're hiring." I typed a reply but stopped myself before sending it. It was better to let the uncertainty fester. Meanwhile, Michelle received an official response from Techline's legal department. They acknowledged our offer but had yet to accept it. They were requesting a discussion about potential alternative licensing terms. Translation: they couldn't afford it and were hoping I'd back down. I didn't. Instead, Michelle replied with a simple, professional note. "As stated in our proposal, these terms are non-negotiable unless accompanied by either a substantial equity stake or a public acquisition offer. We understand if Techline prefers to explore other vendor options." There were no other viable vendors. Chronocore wasn't just a service provider. It was their entire infrastructure. Replacing it wouldn't be like switching office furniture. It would take at least 18 months to replicate what we had built, and they didn't have that kind of time. Later that evening, as I walked through my new office at Verity's downtown location, Chrono's updated HQ, I noticed the construction crew finishing up the glass walls of our new strategy lab. I watched the team set up whiteboards and tech screens, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, a sense of belonging. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Voicemail. I hit play. Olivia, this is Damon. I think we need to start over. I don't know what your endgame is here, but you're putting a lot of people at risk. People who supported you for years. Just think about that. You were better than this. The false concern in his voice made me shake my head. I had put people at risk. This was the man who fired me in front of the entire executive team. The man who pushed through reckless expansion plans, slashed budgets for onboarding and QA, eliminated remote work options to boost productivity, and then blamed me when senior developers started leaving. And now, suddenly, he was the one at risk? No, Damon wasn't worried about the staff. He was worried about the board. Clara confirmed it the next morning. Damon had tried to spin the vendor issue as a result of unexpected market volatility. The board wasn't buying it. They demanded a full audit of supplier dependencies. Damon deflected. Then they brought in an audit council. This is falling apart fast. I think he knows his time's up, Clara said. At noon, my inbox pinged. It was from Techline's board chair, Richard Alvarez. Subject: Immediate assistance requested from Techline board chair, Richard Alvarez. Dr. Monroe. On behalf of the board of directors at Techline, I'd like to request a confidential meeting at your earliest availability. We are currently reviewing the strategic handling of partnerships, and we understand you may have valuable insights that could assist the board's assessment. Please let us know when would be convenient for you to discuss further. Well, now this was interesting. I quickly replied. Mr. Alvarez, I'd be happy to make time later this week. Thursday or Friday morning works well for me. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, eyes drifting to the framed quote on my shelf, a gift from one of my former engineers at Techline. Be the kind of leader your future self won't have to apologize for. I had no apologies to offer because, while Damon had played the political game, I had built something real. The game wasn't over yet. Thursday morning arrived, crisp and cold, the chill in the air somehow fitting. I chose my outfit carefully, a navy pantsuit with sharp lines, silver cufflinks, and the sapphire ring my grandmother had passed down to me. It was an ensemble that sent a clear message. I don't work for you, but you'll wish I did. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked into a private boardroom on the 32nd floor of the Halberton Tower, where Techline's board had booked space for what they described as a confidential off-site review. The receptionist greeted me warmly. Dr. Monroe, they're expecting you. Inside, Richard Alvarez, the board chairman, stood up to welcome me. Thank you for coming, Olivia. We appreciate you making the time. Of course, I replied, shaking his hand. The room was quiet, paneled in dark wood, with a carafe of coffee left untouched on the credenza. 6 board members sat at the table, their faces a mix of neutrality and discomfort. They didn't know how I'd show up, angry, bitter, smug. Instead, I brought nothing but calm. I understand you've requested some insight regarding the Chronocore situation, I began. Richard nodded. It's escalated beyond our expectations. I had a feeling it might, I said, placing a sleek leather folder on the table. In here, you'll find a timeline of events, emails, correspondence, and financial filings. All of it confirms that Chronocore was fully acquired by Verity Partners 3 weeks ago. We are now the exclusive provider for your AI systems architecture and control the data modules that are powering over 60% of your next-gen rollout. The room fell silent. I continued. At the time of acquisition, I was no longer employed by Techline, meaning there is no conflict of interest. What we have here is a failure on your current leadership's part to properly assess operational risk. A board member in a grey suit leaned forward. Why didn't Damon flag this? Perhaps, I answered coolly, Because he didn't see it coming. That struck a chord. I watched as they shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Richard cleared his throat. He told us the vendor disruption was due to internal politics, that Chronocore had overextended. I shook my head. Chronocore is more stable now than it's been in 5 years. What's unstable is Damon's assumption that cutting out institutional knowledge was the best move. I paused and added softly, sometimes the bottleneck isn't the one who's slow. It's the one who doesn't understand what they're holding back. Later that day, back at Verity's office, I met with my new executive team. We were finalizing the terms of the updated licensing agreement Techline was now being pushed to sign. It's a generous offer, Michelle noted. We even included a 6-month grace period at their old pricing tier to soften the impact. They won't see it that way, I replied. But it's fair. We're not here to punish anyone. We're here to protect our product and set a clear precedent. Across the table, our CTO, Eli, pulled up a live dashboard showing incoming client inquiries. Since the press release, he said, we've had 12 enterprise-level companies reach out, some even from Techline's competitors, asking about migrating to our platform. I scanned the list, and 2 names stood out immediately. I had spent years chasing these clients while at Techline, only to be told they were out of reach. Now they were coming to me. By Friday, the board had convened an emergency executive session. Clara kept me updated via text. Word is, Damon won't make it through the weekend. They've cut his calendar access. Legal's getting involved. Oh, and by the way, he just realized the DevOps team copied you on the last documentation repo before you left. The timestamps on the audit trails show you were working in good faith the whole time. He's unraveling. I stared at the word, unraveling. It didn't bring me any satisfaction. It brought closure. This wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition, about finally being seen after 6 years of hard work, only to be dismissed and told, you're in the way. It was about showing them what happens when you push aside the woman who knew every line of code, built every partnership, and mentored half of the team that was still holding the company together. That evening, just as I was about to shut down my laptop for the weekend, another message popped up. Subject: formal response to licensing proposal from Richard Alvarez. Dr. Monroe. The board has reviewed the proposal from Verity Partners and is prepared to accept the terms as outlined, including the updated pricing model, acknowledgement of new ownership, and the 6-month transition clause. We would also like to extend an apology for how your departure was handled. We understand this doesn't change the past, but we hope it opens the door to a more respectful professional relationship moving forward. Thank you for your time and for reminding us what true leadership looks like. I read it twice, then again. I forwarded it to Michelle, who replied almost instantly. Well, that's about as close to a corporate confession as you're going to get. I leaned back in my chair and watched the lights flicker across the skyline. Below, the city was alive with movement. People rushing, chasing, climbing, and me. I wasn't climbing anymore. I had already arrived. Monday morning came quietly. Too quietly. The kind of calm before everything shifts. I arrived at Verity's headquarters just before 8 a.m., coffee in hand, and opened my inbox. There it was, a flood of overnight alerts, press inquiries, and internal updates. The story had broken. CEO ousted in corporate shakeup. Techline board removes Damon Reeves amid vendor crisis. The headline was everywhere, on tech blogs, in financial news, even trending on LinkedIn under hashtag leadership matters. I clicked on the article, scanning for familiar names. It quoted a source close to the board, saying Damon's failure to assess critical supplier risks, combined with the sudden loss of Chronocore, had caused irreparable damage to his reputation and left multiple product lines at risk. He was out, effective immediately. Clara confirmed it within the hour. It's real. Damon cleared his desk at 7 a.m. No speech, no drama. He didn't even look anyone in the eye on his way out. The interim CEO is Richard Donovan. He used to head operations at Iron Core before their acquisition. Total cleanup guy. P.S. They're rebranding the AI Ops Hub to distance it from Phase 2. People are calling it the Ghost Project internally. She followed it up with a gif of someone dumping water on a fire. I smiled. But even with all the chaos unfolding, I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm, resolved. Damon's downfall had been inevitable, but what came next was more important. At 11 a.m., I walked into our product lab for a team debrief. Our engineers were preparing for a technical rollout for new enterprise clients, many of whom had reached out after seeing Techline stumble. Eli, our CTO, pulled me aside before we began. "You won't believe this," he said. Techline sent over a draft of the public licensing agreement. They actually included your name. I blinked in disbelief. "You're kidding, right?" "Not even a little bit." Right there in bold text, it read, "Technology developed by Olivia Monroe, licensed exclusively through Verity Partners." Front and center. "Legal must have pushed this through," Eli added. I stared at the document, my name now in the public eye, clear and unmistakable. It felt like taking a deep breath after months underwater. "They've never acknowledged it before," I murmured. "Not when I created the system. Not when it launched. Not even after the first 1,000,000 users." "Well," Eli said, "they're saying it now loud and clear." By Tuesday, we had a private strategy session to go over the incoming requests for migration. 12 former Techline clients wanted to demo our new platform. 3 of those, had been untouchable accounts back when I was there. Executives would shoot down the idea before I could even finish my pitch. But now, they were knocking on our door. Not because of flashy presentations or clever marketing, but because they finally understood what I had always known. The value wasn't in the brand, it was in the work itself. That afternoon, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Isla Grant. She'd been one of the few senior women in leadership at Techline during my early days. Sharp, driven, and empathetic. We'd worked closely together until she was edged out 2 years before I left, during another company realignment. "Olivia," she said, "I've been following everything. You have no idea what this has done for the women still in tech, especially those over 40. I stayed silent for a moment, unsure how to respond. "You didn't just win," Isla continued. "You showed that you can hold on to your dignity and patience while being strategic. You outsmarted them without playing dirty. That's rare, and it's powerful." Her words lingered with me long after our conversation ended. This wasn't just about making a comeback, it was about sending a message. You can fight back and still stay true to yourself. You can stand your ground without becoming the villain. By Wednesday, Techline had issued a company-wide announcement. Techline has reached a strategic agreement with Verity Partners for continued access to the Chronocore platform. We are committed to maintaining operational excellence as we evolve under new leadership. At the bottom of the release was a quiet acknowledgement of my name. No adjectives, no exaggerations, just the facts. And that was enough. Meanwhile, at Verity, our marketing team was putting the finishing touches on a keynote presentation I'd been invited to give at the upcoming Global Technology Leadership Forum. The title: "When the System Says You're Replaceable and You Prove It Wrong." That evening, as I returned home, I found a handwritten note in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a simple card with a single line. "You've become the story I tell my daughter when she thinks she's not strong enough." No name. No signature. Just that. I held the card to my chest, letting the meaning sink in. It wasn't about pride or revenge. It was about clarity. This wasn't about what I had lost. It was about what I had reclaimed. My name. My work. My worth. And I wasn't finished yet. 1 year after walking out of Techline's glass tower with nothing but a plain cardboard box, I stepped into Verity's headquarters as the morning sunlight poured across the polished floor. It felt like a quiet milestone, no fanfare, no big announcements. Just the rhythmic click of my heels and the hum of a company I had helped rebuild from the ground up. As I walked toward my office, Eli waved me over from the strategy room. "You need to see this," Eli said with a grin, motioning for me to come over. I walked up to the wall where our analytics dashboard was cycling through live data from our clients. The numbers were staggering. Client retention, 98%. New enterprise onboardings, 14 in the last quarter. Revenue growth, 31% year over year. Then Eli pulled up the most satisfying number. Techline's projected market share loss, 27% net migration to Verity infrastructure, including 9 of their top 20 former accounts. "They tried to downplay it at first," Eli said. "But now investors are asking questions, and they're finally starting to answer." I blinked. "Answering how?" Eli turned the screen to show me Techline's official statement just posted on their investor relations page. "We acknowledge that strategic missteps, including the mishandling of key partnerships, contributed to the challenges we faced last year. We also recognize the foundational work of former executives, including Olivia Monroe, in building the operational systems that continue to shape the market." I stared at the screen, my name printed, attached to my work. Not whispered behind closed doors or hidden in the fine print, out in the open for everyone to see. For a moment, I just stood there, quiet. Eli watched me before adding, "It's not everything, but it's something. It's enough." "I didn't need credit," I replied. "I needed the truth." Later, I went over the latest legal reports. 3 more licensing deals were signed. One was with Techline's longest-standing partner, now fully switched over to our system. Michelle sent me a message shortly after. They'll try to buy time with rebranding, new leadership, and PR campaigns, but the core issue remains. They forgot the people who built their foundation. And you reminded them of that without ever raising your voice. I sat there for a moment, rereading her message. It hit me. That was it, wasn't it? All the strategy, all the quiet moves, all the times I stayed calm when they expected me to break. It wasn't about ego. It was about showing that grace and power could coexist. Later that evening, as I walked through Verity's quiet hallways, I noticed something new near the entrance. A framed plaque I hadn't approved but instantly recognized. It read, "The real legacy of innovation is not the product. It's the people who make it possible." And under it, in smaller text, was my name. I stood there for a while, watching the reflection of the hallway lights in the glass. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. It was a message from Clara. "Just wanted you to know I officially start Monday. Thank you for keeping the door open. It feels like I'm coming home." I smiled. Clara had been one of the last to leave Techline. Loyal, but now finally ready to grow beyond the limitations they had placed on her. "Welcome back," I replied. "There's so much more we're going to build." That night, I pulled a small box from the back of my closet. It still held mementos from that final day at Techline. My mug, my team's farewell note, the pen they gave me when we hit $50 million in revenue. I looked at each item, not with regret, but with clarity. Those years hadn't been wasted. They'd shaped me, strengthened me, and made this moment possible. A year ago, they'd told me I was a bottleneck. What they never understood was that I wasn't holding the company back. I was holding it together. And now I was building something even stronger, on my own terms, with the right people and with my name exactly where it belonged. Not buried in footnotes, not hidden in someone else's speech, but clearly, boldly, permanently at the top. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Stay amazed.